Hey guys, what's up? It's Kevin for the Wit. We're back for another edition of Diablo 3. Today on the channel, we are looking at the Zunimassa Haunt set armor again, but a different version of the build that I showed you for the starter build, that being the Poison Dart variation. The reason I didn't show this before was because it is an armor that takes a lot of getting used to and optimization, which is not great for your seasonal journey. But let's get into it right now. Zunimassa's Haunt, in case you need a refresher as to what the set armor itself does, although we're not using all the pieces here. As you can see, those are the pieces we're using. 2-piece bonus: your Fetish Army lasts until they die, and the cooldown of your Fetish Army is reduced by 80%. 4-piece bonus: you and your pets take 3% less damage for every fetish you have alive. 6-piece bonus: enemies hit by your mana spenders take 15,000% increased damage by your pets for 8 seconds. So we're going to use the Carnival. We're going to also be using the Witching Hour, Depth Diggers. As you can see here, the Compass Rose, Zunimassa's Pox, Zunimassa's String Skills, the other part of the Gould's Carnival. The 10 fetish closest to you will shoot a powerful Poison Dart every time you do. So this is where the Poison Dart variation kind of shows its power. We're going to use, as you see here, a Gould's Powered, a Gould's Search, a Gould set, for those of you who don't know. Reduce damage taken by 15%, increase damage by 30%, free piece, minus 30% damage from elite monsters' attacks, and plus 30 damage to elite monsters. We're going to be using the Dagger of Darts, your Poison Darts, and your fetishes. Poison Darts now pierce and deal an additional 430% damage. We're going to be using the Zunimassa's offhand here. The Witching Hour for the belt is what I would recommend, just because it's a nice, decent stat. We need Depth Diggers for the pants. Primary skills deal 93% additional damage. From there, the Compass Rose you want to run. Zunimassa's Pox you have to run for the ring, so that gives you one less ring slot. The Traveler's Pledge you need to run for the Walker set. While moving, damage tick is reduced by up to 50%, while standing still, damage is increased by 100%. Again, you don't have as many ring slots because you have to use Zunimassa's in order to use the Ring of Royal Grandeur here. For the skills, Poison Dart, Spine Dart, Fetish Army, Legion of Daggers, Spirit Walk, Jaunt, Soul Harvest, Languish, Big Bad Voodoo, Slam Dance are the skills that you want to run. Also, we want to run Piranha's Parando, because we want the Tornado Fear for the mana spenders. For the passes, Spirit Vessel, Fetish Scarecfant, Pierce the Veil, Grave Injustice. For the Kadai's Cube, Echoing Fury, Masker Jerome, you must run, and a Ring of Royal Grandeur. This is what my Paragon looks like concurrently. For the Follower, Broken Crown, Flavor of Time, Nemesis Bracers. Everything else that you put on the Follower, it's nice to have, but it's not going to do too many things tremendously. Now, in terms of this armor, this is an armor that's a push build, and it's a very slow push build. So I'm going to show you how this does on Greater Rift 60 and Greater Rift 70, and that's it. If you want to figure out what this does on Greater Rift 80 and 90, you just kind of have to add maybe like a minute extra to your clear times. Keep in mind that this is not my particular way that I would like to play this build, as I feel like Poison Dart Zunimassa is very niche, and you're kind of a bit of a glass cannon, but because people were asking for it, I wanted to grant your request. If you prefer to see the pet variation, that's available as the starter build. So the first thing that you want to do when you get into the Greater Rift is cast your Fetish Scarecfants, or your Fetish Army. Then what you can do there is cast your Piranha, and then from there fire off your darts as your primary attack. Now basically what's going to happen here is every time you fire off a tornado and you are firing off the darts and your fetishes are attacking with that, you're going to deal increased amount of damage as well as being a little bit tanky. So damage rotations for this are a little bit wonky. First and foremost, you want to make sure that you get 5 stacks of Soul Harvest wherever possible. Then from there, what you want to do is you want to use your tornado to bunch up a whole bunch of enemies so that you can fire off poison darts along with your fetishes so that you can just get enemies by surprise. Now, the problem particularly with this armor that I personally feel is the fact that sometimes your army follows way behind you and are not like in front of you. So when you're trying to fire off things, you're not exactly looking at the targets that you are potentially looking for. Another problem is because Big Bad Voodoo Slam Dance stays in one position. If you tend to use your Big Bad Voodoo at the wrong general situation, you pretty much are wasting your Big Bad Voodoo, so you have to save it for when there's a lot of enemies on screen. The other thing with this build is you got to constantly remember that you're fire off the Piranha Tornado, because if you're not doing so, your darts are not doing as much damage because you're not proccing the 6-piece bonus. So it takes quite a bit of time to get used to all these bit of nuances, and then trying to keep an eye also on your soul harvest stacks, which are going to be only at 5, because remember, you're not using a soul harvester weapon like a lot of the other builds that I've showed you for the Witch Doctor. In terms of optimization, this is a bit more tricky. First and foremost, it's going to be very hard for you to get a Carnival that's an ancient legendary that has a socket in its slot. So you're going to have to be able to play around with whatever Carnival you have and then constantly swap it out whenever possible. The problem with this is Carnival is one of those particular helms that does not drop significantly frequently for the Witch Doctor. So you might be at this for quite a while, wasting resources, maybe even just upgrading rare helms to be able to get your Carnival. So, you know, user beware, player beware. It takes a while to get that particular piece of gear. Depth Diggers also for this gear is going to be a bit challenging because you need a 2-socket one, and trying to get an Ancient Legendary with 2 sockets and good stats is going to be, for the most intents and purposes, a bit challenging. So there's a lot of things that are working against you here. But if you do manage to get a good Ancient Legendary of both of them, you should be looking for specific stats. On your helm, again, I always will recommend crit hit chance 6.0%. On your gloves, I recommend these free stats. Crit hit chance 6.0%, attack speed at least 8.0%, crit hit damage at least 50%. Those free stats will be a determining factor as to whether you clear another 10 Greater Rifts or not with this particular build. In terms of Fervor Optimization, first and foremost, I would say that it is in your benefit probably to get cooldown reduction. Cooldown reduction 8.0% wherever possible. The reason for this is the more cooldown reduction you have, the faster you can bring back your Big Bag Voodoo, as well as your Soul Harvest stacks, as well as just getting your cooldown a bit quicker with your Fetish Army, which it will be kind of useful in the long term because you can recast them and try to reposition them where you need them. Fervor Optimization, obviously, because this is the Witch Doctor class. Anywhere that you can increase your amount of intelligence, make sure you do so. Make sure that you have the maximum stat rolls on your intelligence. Unfortunately for this build, since you're using mostly primary resources, you're not going to need area of effect damage, as it will not really do anything to help augment this build. So really, from there, what I would say, after you've maximized your attack stat, the next thing you should be doing is powering up your Fetish Army 15% wherever possible. Then from there, wherever you can power up your Poison Dart by 15%, wherever possible, I would recommend doing so as well, because remember, Poison Dart is the main source of damage on this build. From there, maybe if you can fit 15% for the Piranhas, it'd be great, but remember, the Piranhas are there just to help you increase the amount of damage of your Poison Dart. So it's a pretty risky situation as to what you should be optimizing in pursuit of that. So, you know, it's a bit interesting in all retrospects with this particular build, because it plays so vastly different from some of the other type of Witch Doctors ones in terms of optimization. Now, in terms of Fervor Optimization, what could you do? Preferably, all your gear should be at least Ancient Legendary. That's the gold borders, or Primal Ancient Legendary. In order to get a Primal Ancient Legendary, obviously, you're going to need to clear a Greater Rift 70 solo. If you do that with non-CISO character, any non-CISO character that clears a Greater Rift 70 solo will allow for all the other characters to be able to access a Primal Ancient Legendary drop, which is a 2% chance. If you're playing seasonal character, however, which the Zunimassa Haunt set armor is your starter set build, you will have to clear the Greater Rift solo 70 with your particular character, which should be around chapter 5 or 6 of your seasonal journey. So then you'll get Primal Ancient Legendaries to drop that way. So there's definitely that to look forward to if you're doing that. Now, if you're playing your seasonal character and you're trying to figure out exactly how you should get all these pieces of armor, my recommendation is you use the base set of Zunimassa, you follow my pet build guide, and you just farm with that to get the rest of the pieces you need. If you need a stronger armor, however, I would recommend that you take a look at the Spirit Barrage Mundanugu, because Spirit Barrage Mundanugu will allow you to farm at quicker speeds than either of the Zunimassa builds, which will allow you to get pieces of this gear that you need for pushing significantly better. Now, keep in mind, this is a very slow armor to work with because it's slow and steady wins the race here. One of the reasons why people like to use particularly Zunimassa this particular season is the fact that it has very good clearing potential for the Echoing Nightmares, because Echoing Nightmares, they can stand very far apart and you get more tanky with your army and everything of the sort. So it's definitely something to play around with and try to figure out what you would want to do, but that's why most people are considering it S tier. I personally My personal opinion, I think Mundanuga performs way better than this particular armor does. The problem with Zunimassa, again, is because you're letting your pets do most of the work for you, and they're attacking, and sometimes you don't get the perfect alignment with them. This armor can get very squishy for you, and when you get very squishy with this, you take a lot of unnecessary deaths, which is why I don't particularly like this armor, but since I know a lot of people were recommending it, there. So if you're trying to build for this, there's a lot of things that you're going to need. Like, for starters, you got to farm for the Carnival Helm. 2 options: do a whole bunch of Greater Rifts over and over and over again that are like level that you can clear in 3 minutes. So if you could clear Greater Rift 70 or 60 with a better armor in 3 minutes clear time, you should probably do that. Do like 3 or 4 hours runs. Maybe you'll run into the Helm. If not, you'll have to do it the hard way like I did, where you just have to buy a whole bunch of Helms that are basically rare from the merchant that sells them. Kada, I believe is her name. And then you put them into Kanai's Cube and upgrade them one by one, and maybe you'll get the Carnival that way, hopefully. That's probably your best route to go. The Poison Darts Dagger is a little bit easier because you could just buy a whole bunch of daggers and then upgrade them. Let's see what the clear time is here. Probably going to be 6 minutes. It's a slow build because it's just a push. Yeah, Greater Rift 60, 6 minutes clear time there. All right, I'm going to show you Greater Rift 70. This is going to take about the same amount of time. Same strategy as before. Cast your Fetish Army from the very get-go. Fire off a Piranha Tornado. From there, use your Poison Darts to attack targets. And then also try to maintain your 10 stacks of Soul Harvest. If there are a lot of enemies coming towards you, you want to cast your Big Bad Voodoo. Your Big Bad Voodoo Slam Dance says whenever your allies are near the Big Bad Voodoo, they will do an increased amount of damage to it. Again, this is why we get the cooldown reduction, just so that we could use Big Bad Voodoo for that. Also, keep in mind that you got to get your 5 stacks of Soul Harvest, so always keep an eye on that, because that will increase the amount of intelligence, and it will help when you factor that in with, like, Big Bad Voodoo, everything. So it takes a while to get used to how to run this armor, but when you run it, it will do you somewhat well. In terms of clearing Echoing Nightmare, this armor, a lot of people like it because they could just stand back, fire off some tornadoes, and just have the Fetish Army do all the work, and they don't pretty much just stand back. The only problem with that is if you stay too stationary, in my personal opinion, the AoE effects are going to go off tremendously, and then you might put yourself in a situation where you end up dying and not clearing a 150, but everybody's really raving that this is the way to go. I personally think there's a better option would be the Marauder pet build for the Demon Hunter in terms of being the S tier of Echoing Nightmare, but it's a very interesting debate that's going on the internet as to which of these 2 armors is the better option right now. So there's that. In terms of the overall seasonal journey, I would say that Zunimassa Fetish Army is good at pushing, but it loses favor to some of the more fan favorite armors. Again, Whirlwind armors, Whirlwind Barbarian is still kind of one of the end-all to be-alls. When you look at all the strides that the Marauder set has done, Environment Marauder's gotten a lot of buffs, and that's gained a tremendous amount of favor with a lot of Diablo III players. That seems to be very high in the leaderboard placement now, potentially also because of how well it does in Echoing Nightmare. When you then factor in other things as well, like you have Gears of Dreadland, which still does very well. You have the Parents of Justice Monk. You have the Wave of Light Monk builds. There's just a lot of options that are, in my personal opinion, and a lot of other players' opinion, more viable. The fact that you're playing around with something that's basically a glass cannon with this particular build, and as you go higher up, that's getting hit by constant projectiles and everything sort, is a bit troubling. On top of that, particularly, we all know when it comes to my channel on Diablo 3, I like to get speedy builds going. Anything that takes me this long to clear through things, even if it's, you know, attacking from a distance and it's very effective, it's quite a boring playstyle. So this is one of the things about why I didn't show off also the Poison Dart build and recommend it as the starter build, is the fact that it takes long to clear through things. So unless you have the patience of just sitting and watching all this action happen from far away, this might not be the type of armor that you want to. If you're looking for things with speed, you're going to have to use Spirit Barrage Witch Doctor, or to a lesser extent, if you wanted to use the Jade Harvesting armor, that one would also be a somewhat viable option compared to, in terms of speed I'm talking about, as opposed to Zunimassa. Or you could just simply go with the pet build that I have. That's available. I think the pet build is a little bit better in the terms of that you just can hang back a little bit more, and I feel like those pets do a little bit more to help set you up for a better winning position. As I've mentioned before here on the channel just recently, we have started a Twitch channel where I play a wide variety of games, similar to what I do here on YouTube. We have been playing some Diablo 3 recently. I tend to grind all my builds that you see on this channel here, as well as play seasonal content on the Twitch stream channel. So it's twitch.tv/Dreadscape Gaming, same name as here. So twitch.tv Dreadscape Gaming. It'd be awesome if you dropped us a follow there as well. So we're continuing on our road to affiliate, and I would like to get more feedback in terms of Diablo players as to what they'd like to see me do. Mostly right now, my Twitch stream is just me grinding out builds that you then eventually see on YouTube and playing seasonal content, and I do play hard games there as well. Stuff that I don't have as much leeway to do on, obviously, the YouTube channel, since I know a lot of my user base here is just primarily Diablo 3, so there's that. Again, right now, personal thoughts when it comes to Diablo 3 Season 26 Echoing Nightmares. I'm a little impartial to it. There are a lot of people who are very not happy with the season because they feel like the actual seasonal content is locked behind, obviously, getting the Petrified Scream, and that they feel like they don't drop enough. So you're lucky if every once in a while you get to partake in the actual seasonal theme. I do like the concept of the Echoing Nightmares. I feel like it's very cool to be able to Paragon farm very fast and quickly, being able to augment armors at a quicker, faster rate and get you higher up. I would be one of the few people that would be very interested in seeing Echoing Nightmares come back after the season's over as an actual endgame activity. The reason for that, it's been a very long time since we've had any sort of our endgame activity in Diablo 3. I remember when we didn't have Greater Rifts, and then the Greater Rifts were introduced with the Nephilim Rift, and that kind of did the whole infinite gameplay type of thing. Though doing Greater Rifts and running through things does get kind of stale as a while, and trying to grind Greater Rifts for also Paragon can be quite a challenge if you're not doing it in groups. So I would like to see Echoing Nightmares come back, because Echoing Nightmares at least gives people who are solo players in particular a chance to be able to compete and do well, and those that don't play on groups, because there's some people who just play on Switch, like bought the game on Switch, never powered it up online, have never played in the online thing, so having Echoing Nightmares as a non-seasonal thing for them next season would probably give them incentive to try to climb even greater heights and push themselves and experiment. Maybe even then, because of that, be interested in doing things of seasonal content. A lot of creators aren't happy because I can understand that Petrified Screams take a long time to drop, and sometimes you kind of question if it's really worth doing that, when in reality, all you're doing in the game is Paragon farming, which you're doing basically endgame activities anyway, just with a little extra help of a mode. So that I can see why people, particularly for that, are not very, very happy. In terms of legendary gems for this particular build, I forgot to mention this. You definitely want to run an Enforcer gem because you're using the pet build. I would also recommend a Bane of the Stricken and Bane of the Trap. If you don't want to run a Bane of the Stricken, you could also use a Simplicity Strength. Simplicity Strength will power up your poison darts even further. So you could do something like Simplicity Strength, Bane of the Stricken, Bane of the Trap if you wanted to. Or you can just use the Enforcer, Simplicity Strength, and then maybe a Bane of the Trap there if you have the space for it. So you can play around with it, definitely. My personal experience, it seems like Simplicity Strength, Bane of the Stricken, Bane of the Trap are the way to go. Rift Guardian, so we're going to fire off the Tornado, Poison Dart. The Big Bad Voodoo is up, so it pretty much pops the Rift Guardian. So when it comes to higher level Rift Guardians, it still pops things very quickly. The problem is it's just a very slow type of grind out to get to the Rift Guardians, which is why I don't personally recommend this build to some of the newer players. Some of the older players that don't mind pushing and taking that long, particularly at the higher Greater Rifts, are probably going to like this because it's a good viable option. If you want to grind high level Echoing Nightmares, we're talking tier 150, this is probably a good way to go, although I personally still think, in my personal opinion, that the Embodiment Marauder set has this one beat because it has way more mobility, and it doesn't have to get as close into the action as opposed to the having to fire off the poison darts near the Fetish Army to be able to do things effectively. So there's that. Let's level up this gem here. I am testing something for the future with Zay's Stone of Vengeance. Alright, so let's teleport back to base. Take a look at the clear time. That clear time is probably going to be about 7 minutes. Greater if 80s, 90s, you're just going to have to add a minute. As you further optimize it, you can probably shave off a minute, but it's never going to be super quick. So as a Greater Rift level 70, 7-minute clear time. Greater Rift 80, probably 8 minutes. Greater Rift 90, probably 9 minutes. With Fervor Optimization, though, you should be able to clear it a little bit better, but it is very slow armor. Anyway, that's going to do it for today's Diablo 3 video. As always, a like on this video is greatly appreciated. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, definitely consider doing so, as it helps the channel grow, and I will see you for the next one.